So as a clear disclaimer, I will be covering spoiler content for Overlord, the light novel series. I will be covering volumes 15 and 16. So these are volumes that are currently only released in Japan. So if you don't want spoilers, then I suggest clicking off the video. But I will be discussing about what Ainz discovers in these two volumes, and also the other key component, which is Zeshi, also known as Antilene, and how certain events that play out in volume 16 have led to Ainz to be very, let's just say, angry. So if you don't want spoilers, I suggest clicking off the video. And again, a big thank you to my Patreon members for supporting the channel. Your support allows me to continue doing the work, and if you do want additional perks and benefits, consider joining the Patreon. So the thing that happens in volume 16 that I want to discuss about, and I'm not giving necessarily my thoughts, but more a discussion point of many different angles that I've seen online and just discussing about them, and you can make your own decision, is that at the end of volume 16, Ainz gets his hands on Zeshi, or Antilene, as known as. And because of the battle that goes on with there, she's defeated, she's taken to Nazarick, and information is taken out of her about what she knows, and that is where Ainz finds out about the fate of Shalltear and who mind-controlled Shalltear, which Ainz finds out it is the Slane Theocracy, and he is extremely, and I mean extremely mad. So that's why I've came up with the general theory that volume 17 and 18, which will be the two final volumes, noted by the author. I know some people have been saying, oh, but I thought it was just volume 17. The author did volumes 15 and 16 as one big volume, but it was split into two, so we gained an additional volume. So quick explain there. But because he is extremely mad, I believe that he's going to go in full pretty throttle in wiping out the Slane Theocracy, and he's going to do some big stuff that's just going to completely decimate them. They're not going to have a chance. And the fact that Zeshi, or Antilene, I have to note both because some people know her as Zeshi and some people now know her as Antilene because of the two volumes, that's their trump card. That was their trump card that they could have used. Not that it was ever going to win, but that's all they had really as a leg up. You could say the dragon, but really, Zeshi was probably their best hope of winning against Nazarick. Not that they ever had a chance, but that was their only glimmer of hope, and now it is gone. The thing that's been discussed, though, is Ainz really in the right for being angry? Now, Ainz has always been a very logical, calm, well, I wouldn't say super calm. Most of the time, he's been pretty calculated and calm. There are moments where he can get a little bit feisty, a little bit angry, but the emotional suppressors always kind of get in and calm him down. So it depends on the situation. I mean, if Albedo's throwing herself at him, he might get a little bit worked up, or if someone interferes on his plans or lies to him about his past friends or threatens to hurt those that are precious to him, then he can get very angry. So I can understand why he would be frustrated about why Shalltear was mind controlled. But at the same time, you've also got to remember back then, Ainz was the one that sent her out, knowing that she has that bloodlust thing, and she was also the one that instigated that attack. It's not like they instigated the attack. Yes, they did do that to her, but she did in fact attack them first. So from their perspective, they are the defensive, and Shalltear was the aggressor. So normally Ainz is pretty calculated with those things and would kind of look at those things and weigh them up and be like, okay, yep, understand that Shalltear was kind of in the wrong and that he was in the wrong, and he's always been very critical of himself, even though the other NPCs have kind of weighed down on him. At the same time, people could also argue that they could have done something different to get away from there. Why were they there? What were they interfering about? You've also got to look at the first volume where they tried to do a setup with a certain individual. The Slane Theocracy don't exactly have a great track record, so from both perspectives you could kind of try and weigh it up. So the next thing to then ask is, okay, if Ainz shouldn't have been as angry as he was, then what would have been the appropriate response to it? Well, one way to look at it is that he looks at this analytically and kind of thinks, okay, the Slane Theocracy have world-class items, they've got a connection to players that have either there or have been there. And Ainz doesn't know if there are players in the New World or not. He's still kind of looking around for them. We as the individuals know the situation. So again, from the Ivory Tower situation, as us the readers, we know what's going on. Ainz doesn't. So Ainz may think that there might be players hiding there, and they clearly have some type of stuff. They have rare items that Ainz likes to collect. So normally Ainz would probably just go, okay, yes, we were the aggressor, Shalltear was in the wrong, he was in the wrong, but he wants to take them out because they could be a perceivable threat down the line. And so that would be the more calm and logical approach and go at this a little bit more slower paced. The problem with that is that the author now wants to rush the story, so that doesn't really work, because then that would probably end up turning into a 4 to 6 volume series where it is much more calculated response and moving little pieces of the chessboard, and Demiurge probably coming up with some interesting plan to make Ainz the hero and he plays the villain role, and it expands on that further, and then using demons to kind of destroy places, and Ainz trying to make himself look good and then try and influence, and then if they try and get Toei at him, then he can say, oh well look, I was just innocently trying to help, and then he could be much more aggressive in trying to take them out, and also using the underground tunnels that he now possesses, not literal tunnels but networks that he possesses with other organizations that he can then use and influence and grow his power. But that's more of a political game. That was something that the writer was doing a lot more in the early stages of the volumes, right up until, I would say, volume 13, and then that shift and change in the writer's mindset has changed to very much, especially with volume 14, 15, and 16, it's just a lot more full throttle. Like, everything is just like, okay, let's just get this story done with, let's just wipe out the enemies, quick, done, dusted. So that's why I believe Ainz has gone the much more aggressive, angry approach, because it is a little bit easier, and you don't have to agree with me, it's more than happy to have difference in opinions, but I think that's why the author has gone down the route of putting Ainz in a more angry position, so that it's a lot more easier to justify him going a lot more heavy-handed on his approach. Now, that being said, Ainz has noted that he is hypocritical, but at the same time, just because you're self-aware of being hypocritical doesn't make it actually right to be hypocritical. But Ainz to me has always been someone that's been very calm, calculated, and kind of response. Though, as I noted, there are moments where he has been emotional. You look at when the invasion of the tomb happened, he got very emotional, but that was because it was very deeply connected. But then you could argue the same thing with Shalltear. Shalltear is precious to him because she is one of the NPCs. That being said, he still has her. She's not gone. Yes, he did have to do stuff to take her out and then resurrect her, but still, logically and more like Ainz, I feel like he would have gone down the calm, calculated sense, going, okay, yes, we kind of were the aggressors, but let's play this much more clever now. Let's pull back, let's get some information, get some intel. And you would think Demiurge and Albedo wouldn't have some type of information already about the Slane Theocracy and how to gain some type of influence over them. Of course, they wouldn't know everything going on because they are pretty closed, but you would think Demiurge and Albedo wouldn't already have some type of intel going on in there, some type of spy network. And that's what I mean about the difference between a much more political game. Overlord was a much more fun political game, with Ainz being the overpowered overlord that he is. And then when he needs to step on the stage, then it's that grand sort of theatrical of him showing his true might and power. But most of the time it was more of a political game of having a bit more of a fun back and forth. But that's been kind of sidelined for a much more aggressive approach to just finish the story off. Whether you like either or either approach, that's completely up to you as the individual as you're reading it. But when I saw these comments, it kind of did make me think very heavily, and I've brought up the conversation before about, was Ainz in the wrong or not? Again, I'm not emotionally invested in either, simply just playing that devil's advocate. Come from this point, play it from that side, then play it from the other side. But I do notice that a lot of people don't like the idea of Ainz being in the wrong with these couple of volumes, but then some people have also been on the fence of, Ainz kind of was a little bit more aggressive than he should have been, even though he was in the wrong. So I definitely think it's going to be a very heated debate going forward, especially when this plays out in Season 5, how anime-only fans see this going from Seasons 1, 2, 3, and 4 in Ainz's personality, and then seeing that possible shift and change in how anime-only fans respond. And then, of course, as the English release comes out for this, how English fans respond to that as well. So I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What are your thoughts about this? Because I feel like this is going to be another one of those types of videos that I've mentioned where I'm going to probably have to dabble on it again and discuss more in detail of my overall thoughts and opinions, and write it all down and kind of really analyze over all the different opinions that I see out there. So definitely give me your thoughts. What do you think of it, whether positive or negative? It's all fun discussion, and I will definitely be weighing all those up and discussing from all different angles. It's the fun part about doing these kind of videos. So if you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe for more anime content, and I'll see you beautiful nerds in the next video.